Perfect. Good evening, everybody. I'm just getting set up here, so we're going to start in a minute. Cool. I don't know if like early Friday evening's a really good time for a stream, but I figured this would be something quite funny. So I was going through some files the other day, and I came across my university homework from the year 2002 to 2003. So what I thought would be quite entertaining is to take a look at whatever this is, and we're going to go in blind, and we're all going to experience this together. I believe from my first C# classes, when they first introduced the programming language to be studied in my university in the north of England. So this was, I presume .NET 1, I'm going to guess, but we're going to take a look. So exercises 1 and 2 for CT 222, weeks 2, 3 and 4, so about 3 weeks worth of homework. We're going to go in together. So let's find out what on earth this is. I don't even know if this thing's even going to build or is even going to run on a modern computer. We're going to have a look. So blah blah blah. The purpose of these exercises: understand the use of delegate methods that are fundamental to event handling. And that's kind of interesting because, of course, while delegates are still in C# as a language, they don't come up so often in most work. Although the assignment looks complicated at first glance, it's not difficult, but it does need some thinking and research to understand the concepts. Now, of course, this is a beginner's programming class, so hopefully I'm not going to mess this up. Delegates are simply a way of passing a method as a parameter to another method, which can then use the delegate as if it were a local method. That's a good tongue twister. And obviously, since then, the stuff has kind of been replaced by func of T and action of T in C#. I mean, delegates are still there and they still exist. The Visual Studio Solution exercise 1-2 should be copied from UMIST, poor old UMIST, to your working drive. You'll find a link in instructions. Okay, open the project by double-clicking exercise 1 solution. And then when I opened this document last night, I thought this was quite funny. There's a whole bunch of stuff about what to do if it doesn't work, because, I don't know, the early 2000s are wild. Once you have installed the project on your computer, let's go in and see what's going on. So we're going to take a look at the stuff that I have here. So we're going to copy this, we're going to open this, we're going to trust it, and we're going to open it, and we're going to see what this looks like. Solution was loaded with one error, do not show. Okay, so straight out the bat the whole thing fails. Right, so let's close that, and let's do the obvious thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to open it in Visual Studio. And I'm going to hope that Visual Studio can take something from almost 20 years ago and upgrade it. So we're going to watch this together. Okay, so we've got a one-way upgrade prompt. That's pretty cool. And we've got a migration report. Okay, interesting. So what does it say here? Let's zoom in so people can see this stuff. Okay, it says Visual Studio needs to make non-functional changes, so a standard upgrade prompt, show 2 additional messages. Okay, successful, apparently. We're not going to give Visual Studio some feedback, but okay, we're gonna run a build and see what happens here, and I'm gonna go in blind. We're gonna run this and we're gonna see what happens. Let's see. Okay, does it run? Is Visual Studio responsive? Oh my god, this thing actually runs. Take a look at this. So we got, the resolution is so high we can't even see the text on this, and of course WinForms isn't one for high DPI, but if I hit run here, we get a whole bunch of strings of made up names. Bottomley Brian, Bottomley George, Bottoms Peter. Someone really likes Bottoms. Okay, so run test using DLL and run test using my source is the second button, and it just says ex2 your problem. Okay, wow. So firstly, high score for Visual Studio being able to update something from the year 2003, and look at this. Actually, loads of WinForm Designer. I'm kind of astonished that this thing works, honestly. But what we're going to do is we're going to close Studio and we're going to open it up in Rider, and we're going to see how that goes. So let's open this up in JetBrains Rider, and we're going to see if Rider can now that Visual Studio has updated whatever project format version mismatches have happened since the turn of the century. We're going to see if Rider can make some sense of it. Okay, let's have a look. And once we've got this open, we're going to read the question and see what they intended us to do. Now I think this was, what, CT222, so second year programming. Okay, let's have a look at all this stuff. Firstly, let's make this smaller and make all the text bigger. So, oh boy, this is some interesting tabs and spaces comment soup here, but fine. Okay, let's read this Microsoft Word document. So once you've installed the project on your computer, you may need to change the reference in the project to point to the new location of CT222DLL. Do the following if the project fails to run because of a missing reference. I guess this is going to tell people where to find references again. Yeah, add reference, choose projects, click browse. Okay, so I mean we're not doing that stuff anymore because we're not even using Visual Studio. But that's fine. Okay, so if you examine the source code for Form 1 CS, you'll see there are 3 classes defined within that file. There are Form 1, a class which represents the test window and has 3 components, a multi-line text box, 2 buttons, use CT222 sort and CT222 sort EX respectively. Okay, fine, so let's have a look what we've got here. We've got a classic WinForm. Look at all this redundant reference garbage, but we'll clean this stuff up and we'll see if we can add some tests to it and make this work. So this is the classic old school WinForms boilerplate, generated by the WinForms designer. Yeah, here we go, and you'll see all the button syntax, just nasty old stuff. I mean, it has its place. Okay, here we go. Button 1 click, my test class CT222 sort, which I'm guessing comes from a reference DLL. Let's have a look. Yeah, CT222 sort.dll, which I think is somewhere in here as a reference bin. I know that's the built version. Oh yeah, here it is. Cool, exercise1.dll. Perfect. So we've got the button 1 click, which seems to generate a list of names, and I presume sorts them, and then button 2. Okay, the following statement illustrates how to call your own version of the sort method. The skeleton included in this example is called CT222 sort EX. This is some ugly stuff. We're in for a ride. Okay, what are we meant to be doing? Form 1, a class that's the test window. My test class, a class which is used to create and store a list of objects of your own choosing. It also contains 2 methods, which are specific to your objects, a method which compares 2 of your objects and one which formats your objects 2 as a string. Hence, all knowledge, capital All, of your list of objects is encapsulated in this class. Okay, and then CT222 sort and EX. This is a class which contains the sort method. It makes no assumptions about the types of entity in the list. It's just going to sort. Uses 2 delegate methods which are passed in as parameters but actually exist in my test class. CT222 sort is supplied as a compiled assembly. It's actually called exercise1.dll, but you know who's complaining. And CT222 sorts EX is included in the code as a framework which you can complete, because even in the year 2002 we were all building frameworks for everything. There are 2 exercises. Replace the example my test class with your own. Do not use the same object types as I have. Use one that appeals to you. In software design, you always look for classes that appeal to you. For example, complex numbers, addresses, etc. In all of these cases, you have to work out how to compare the objects that you define and decide which is greater than another object. Now, I'm trying to rack my brains for kind of .NET 1.1, but like iComparable and iComparer exist in the language. I'm not really sure why they were teaching us to do custom object comparison. This seems like a really, like even in 2003, a terrible idea. You also need to decide how your objects will be represented as strings. Mocks will be available for imagination, perfect, and a solution which demonstrates a good understanding. Exercise 2 should be based off the result of exercise 1. You should complete the class so that it performs the same as the other class. However, it should sort in reverse order. Brilliant. This is 3 weeks of work. This is when you press both buttons, the results should be identical, except the order of the entries should be reversed. You do not need to hand in this exercise, but keep it for later. Okay, fine. Let's take a look at these horrible classes and see how we would go about refactoring something like this. Like if I were doing this homework today with modern tools, let's do that thing. Okay, so the first obvious thing I'm looking at here, so okay, namespace exercise 1, form 1. Right, so there's a bunch of nested rubbish in here, I presume. Yeah, here's my test class. So the first thing we would do is we would just let's get that out of the main form, and also take this hideous comment soup with it. And I'm going to have to keep on making these things big. Fine. So we've got some. I mean, spot the old school programmers, right, with all this stuff. Like this is not the way you comment, if at all. Thank you for the subscription, whoever that was, or liking, or whichever button that was that you pressed. I got a sound effect. Let's see what else we have here. CT22 sort EX. Okay, so this is the other class that the question talks about. So let's move this as well. And this is, I think, yeah, this is the bit where I meant to put my code in. You need to you need your local private variables here. I'm really glad they're telling me where to keep them. This is the skeleton for your own work. Your version must sort into reverse alphabetical order. Oof. Well, when they give me challenges like that, reverse alphabetical order, I love it. Okay, so I know this stuff kind of works. This is my test class. What is this? Nested classes. My person name. Okay, I mean this is kind of interesting, but let's make this not garbage, which I appreciate is aspirational. So we're gonna pull this person name class out of here, and we're gonna move it to another class of its own. And then it's really interesting because yeah, right, it's beautiful comments. Now this is interesting, isn't it? Because you can tell, and what I can tell when I'm looking through this code base is this lecture course was clearly taught by someone who was teaching Java beforehand, because there's a lot of kind of Java naming conventions subtly in here. Now you can see it more obviously in this, right? So sort's actually capitals here, get sorted string. But when we were in form 1 before, here, get compare delegate with a lowercase g, get form delegate, these kind of old school getters and setters, get list. Okay, so let's have a look at this test class first, because what I really don't like here is actually whenever we click the buttons, we're newing up this test class. And what I probably want to do is pull this out so I can write some kind of unit test around it and work out what on earth is going on. So the obvious thing we can do is we can just pull this up into the constructor, right? So we'll just take this up and over here. In fact, you know what, we can even simpler. We'll just define it here. And then all the way back down at the bottom, we'll delete that one. At least we've got a single instance of this test data floating around. Right, God, look at literally no attention to detail between spacing or anything. Okay, yeah, fine, read only, and we'll rename it to test class. And yeah, read only, and let's just let resharper at this and remove all the redundant qualifiers, so at least this stuff is easier. And we'll fix the naming in the file. Right, cool. So we've got some fairly simple, exactly right, like this is all you ever need from a user interface, right? Okay, we've got these two things, and let's go with the wonderful var everywhere in the file so I can see this stuff, and we're going to take a look at my person name. Now the obvious stuff going on here, let's just call this a person. And then this clearly existed from a time before C# introduced getters and setters. Right, so we're just gonna We're going to plumb that stuff in there. And this is a very kind of OO encapsulation thing, because you could probably argue that a public field of first name and last name probably doesn't make that much of a difference here. I'm glad we've got this helpful comment explaining that a constructor creates a new structure object, live in the dream, whatever that means. And yes, let's let ReSharper format that up. Now obviously this could be a C# record in today's usage, but we will come back to that. And in fact, let's take a look at what language version this is using, because it's probably a C# 7.3 framework 4.0. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go up to like latest major version. And we're going to build that. I wonder if I can port this to .NET Core. That'd be kind of entertaining. I mean, there's not much to it, right? So we've got our person class. And in the interests of, what did the Word document tell me I had to do? I have to use a data structure that appeals to me. Perfect, appeals to me. Well, I really like it when people have ages. That appeals to me. We should let Copilot do this for me. There we go. Thank you, GitHub. Doing my homework 20 years in the future. And then I suppose we'll take in an age and we'll default everyone to 100. Why not? And then, yes, thank you, Copilot. There we go. We got ages, and I think if I run this now, keeps on. You're never going to be able to see this on the stream, but if I click that, it still says the names, and here it still says your problem. It is my problem. Now let's get out of this and try and put some tests around this thing before. Wow. God, look at the formatting here. It makes me feel slightly ill. Let's read some of these comments. Let's do some peak comment necromancy. Okay, the class myTest class is used to declare the delegate methods to be used in this example, as well as 3 methods to acquire the list, to sort and the 2 delegate methods. English clearly not the original authors. Yeah, okay. This is my example. You're expected to write your own myTest class with your own object. I love how stern university teachers were in the early 2000s. With names that reflect your own. We're just going to delete all of this. It's garbage. So what actually is this thing? A list of my person name object. You could literally replace this whole thing with generics. That's hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Thanks, Raw Coding. Thanks for following. Now, all right. So let's build through this. So this myTest class is almost certainly just like a person list. Fine. Let's do that. I love the retro usage of array lists as well. So for people that aren't 100 years old, like apparently I am now, array lists were what we had in C# before we had generics. So you could either use arrays, or you could use array lists, and array lists are auto-expanding. The problem with array lists is you could put objects of any type in them, so the fact that you can add a person here, if I were to grab like var item equals mylist 0, now the type here is just an object, right? There's nothing here, so you don't get any IntelliSense, you don't get any type safety, it's all gone. So array lists were kind of the first data structure that was, the good bit was they were auto-expanding arrays, but this is, I mean, it's hot garbage in the year 2021, 2022. So what we're going to do is we're just going to do a sneaky little thing, and we're going to make this extend list a person. Right, and we're going to make that inherit, and we're going to delete all of this stuff because, I mean, it was stupid then and it's stupid now. Now what we should be able to do now that we're extending from list, we can just delete that. Bam, everything still works. Wonderful. Let's see what else I broke. Okay, so array list, get list, mylist. Let's just do new array list this. Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky. Okay, so I'm going to guess this still works. And I think what I want to do now is I want to start adding a test project. We're just going to go out there and, yeah, why not? Tests. We're just going to call it tests because who cares? We're going to make this very big. And then what we're going to do is we're going to drop down to, I don't know if anyone's seen the continuous test running stuff in Rider before. It's not quite Encrunch, but what I can do once I cover all my unit tests, you get a test session up here that you're not going to be able to read, but it doesn't matter. There is no coverage. We just need a first shot, and then the test session down here. I can set up continuous testing to cover new and outdated tests. So what we're going to do is we're going to see how much of the code that exists that is covered as we do this. So the first thing I really want to do, I want to make a test class for that person list. Let's do that. So let's rename this to person list tests. Right, fine. And we're going to delete setup for now, and we're just going to say var system under test as new person list, not person list tests. And now it's not going to find that, and hopefully Rider will add a reference. Perfect. Yeah, I'm sorry about that, man. I've not quite got my settings set up so that the menus show up, but I'll work on it for the next session. Hopefully the code is okay and you can see this stuff. So now when I save this, what it should do is cool. It automatically runs these unit tests. Where did that test session go? Well, let's do that again. It might need a little bit of a cover all unit tests. There it is, all tests from solution. That's what I was looking for, and that's the thing that needs to be set to cover new and outdated tests, and we're going to hide that. Evening, Dylan. Now I'm hoping that if I click into this, I'm kind of surprised that maybe I need to do something with this. Okay, so let's... autocomplete really is kind of impressive with Copilot, so I can do a thing there. Unit tests, fine. Now I think I need to go into my continuous testing settings and automatically test on build. That's the one I'm looking for. So now when I run this, we should see those tests flicker, and we'll leave those things there. Okay, so Copilot works in Visual Studio. This is in Rider, and you can get an experimental plugin for Rider. Well, I say experimental, it's in beta. So yes, Copilot works basically everywhere now, not just VS Code. Now, what am I even trying to do here? So when I get a person list, I guess I want to assert that count, well, it's greater than 0, right? Like, I don't really know what this original class does because I haven't looked at it in 20 years. Now I save that, and that should run those tests. I always forget exactly the... Yeah, continuous testing modes, run all tests, cover new and outdated. Let's just do run new, no, cover. Automatically start testing continuous testing sessions on build. Now I want it on save, I want it all projects in the solution, and then of course I remember what the trick is. Yes, this is a different IDE. This is JetBrains Rider. The thing that I normally have set up is autosave. Autosave, save files if the IDE is idle for, there we go, for 3 seconds. So basically everything I type now with a 3-second lag, this will save and it should run those tests. So if I do add new A, B, I do nothing, 1, 2, 3, and hopefully that will save. It's funny how, oh no, there we go, did that just work? 75 milliseconds, I think it might have done. Let's show the time on that, there we go. We're going to turn it off, we're going to cover new and outdated, and if not, I'm just going to run the test. It's not building, that's why. There you go, when I hit save there, you can see it hit pending, and then it rolls. Now, what I'm surprised by is I thought I would see code coverage lines, but I think I've got Encrunch in my head, whereas actually the coverage stuff is out to the side here, and so you can see, well, I think you can see, you can't really see it, but that's fine. Okay, so what does this person list do? Constructor for the my task, like thanks teacher, world's worst comment. That's why people comment stupid stuff. Add a number of the my person name objects to the array list. Wonderfully retro. This guy really had some obsession with bottoms. Very British, I suppose. Return the array list of objects. Like, never do this in your actual code. Just like, and I appreciate this was a university assignment, but like if you've got a method called getList, this is just upsetting. Now what we're going to do is we're going to correct at least the capitalization in this, because clearly this was a Java lecturer doing C#. Now return a new delegate which conforms to the compare objects definition shown at the start of this file. You know when you see everyone on the internet complaining that people need computer science degrees, and then you're just like, what, this computer science degree? Like, come on. Right, declared, all caps, we're going to delete this. And we're going to do this. Right, okay, this is going to be return a new delegate which conforms to the format object definition. Just redundant rubbish. Now, the irony is, the way delegates work, all this stuff is optional. You can just return the function. Now, this may have been post.NET 1, and maybe you had to specifically do this. Okay, starting your degree in computer science. I don't know what a computer science degree looks like in 2022, but I'm really hoping that I'll tell you what I wish I'd have known, which was if you feel burnt out going into your computer science degree, that's okay. I was burnt out at the end of high school and I wasn't really ready to learn properly. And I'll be straight with everyone. Like, I almost failed my degree every year because I don't think I was the right person at the right time. And it took me until leaving university to find that like I really liked learning. Honestly. In the middle of my career now, what I find is just doing my homework actually helps. Whenever I have to learn new things, actually do the homework, read the book. Read any tool that you use all day, every day, read the manual. It sounds really stupid because nobody ever reads the manual, but actually you find most people only know 10% of the features of the tools that they use, and actually by spending a couple of hours reading the manual, you find yourself way more productive. Now, the funny thing about like modern C# now, like obviously we could just kind of do this here and we can crunch these functions down into expression bodies. Now what's this? This is going to be good, isn't it? This method is called as a delegate by the sort method of ct222sort in order to compare the values of two objects. Is this whole exercise implementing equality? I'm excited. The sort method is not concerned with what the objects are, only what order they're in. I love how it seems to be written with pride, because the sort method will work with any type of object. The parameter is declared as a type object. Ramble, 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 stop it. My compare names. Okay, well let's just call that compare. Now what is... okay, fine. Oh, wow, this is interesting. Why would you do that? God. You read this and you're just like, don't go to school, kids. Which is probably bad life advice. Alright, so this is somehow a list where the comparison for the object stored in the list is implemented inside the list class. So if anyone wants to understand how encapsulation breaks really simply, I think this is like a great example of it. There's no way that these functions should exist in this class at all. It's stupid. But alright, let's write a quick test around this compare function. Can we even use it? Compare delegate, so we can get it as a delegate and then put two instances. I mean, you can see why people quit computer science degrees in the early 2000s, frankly. But let's write the test. Okay, so from we're gonna say compare delegate to equal objects. I don't even know what's going to return. Presumably 0. Returns 0. We'll see what happens. So I guess I need to get the comparison delegate. No, Copilot. That's what it should look like. Delegate equals sut get compare delegate, and I bet it's saying that's like add reference. Fine. So now I've got that. I need person1 equals new person, and we'll just do a AB. And then person 2 is also AB, and I'm going to presume that if I say, yeah, thank you Copilot, I guess result should be 0. And we're going to save that and hope. And it blew up. Oh, expected greater than as equal to 0. Okay, well that test passed. So 2 equal objects return 0. We're going to dupe this up one time. A greater than B, I guess if A, well greater, I'm not sure. A comes before B returns 1, I guess. So if A is AB, well we'll do AA and BB, and I guess that should equal 1. Which it does not. Expected 1, it was minus 1. Okay, so if the first one is bigger than the second one, it's minus 1. And just by fleshing these tests out, at least we know what this thing's meant to do, and I'm going to guess that the other way around is 1, right? So if I just do that, and that should be 1. B comes before A. And these are bad test names because I'm actually talking about person 1 and person 2, but let's see, unit test session, where did you go? Yeah, okay, fine, we've got these 3 comparison tests. Now, this is ridiculous, and what we really need to do first to fix this stupid assignment is like remove this whole thing. I think if we go back to the question, it seems to imply that I have to complete the class CT222 sort EX. Now I think what I want to do is I want to make the person class implement comparison, and then we'll just leave these 2 rubbish shims in here, and yeah, I think that seems like a reasonable thing to do. So this person class here is like I comparable, and that compares to object 2. Okay, so God, look at all the stuff that it's trying to produce. So I think this is just now can I just do equals? If I like override equals, will ReSharper generate this for me? Hilariously, will it generate my equality members? Because I know you used to be able to have it do that for you. It's not prompting me to, but maybe, there we go, generate equality members, bam. Ha, there we go. So that's kind of fun. Yes, record in C#, you're right, but in fact that's not a bad idea. If I just make this a record, maybe it will just sort. We'll do it bit by bit. Can you make this generic? That is valid, isn't it? There we go. It even implements compare to. Right, so I suppose all we need to do here is well, let's leave that. Okay, compare to person other. That seems quite easy. Thank you, ReSharper, for doing my homework for me. And now what I need to do is if this thing returns a delegate. God, this is, you can see why delegates really boil people's brains. Firstly, this get list thing is stupid. So can I just return this and switch this to IEnumerable? We'll make it a person. Okay, so that's again equally silly, but that'll break something in the calling code. Cool. So CT222 sort get list, and we'll do the silly thing here. We're just going to make a new array list here. Pass it in. Does that work? Does that have to be an array? Ha. And yeah, that one will have broken as well, but we'll do that as well. And at least I'm not doing silly stuff over there. Now, get comparison delegate. So the sort EX class is past the 2 delegates, and this is an empty function. Okay, here, let's switch this out to IEnumerable person, and that should just work. And I need to add a missing reference. What is all this text? Let's have a look. This is a skeleton for your own version of CT222 sort, which is used in the button 2 click event. But note that your version must sort into reverse alphabetical order. Okay, fine. Fine, that's easy. So what we're actually doing, what the homework actually is, isn't this thing. It's just this thing. Tests. And then we're going to say test. God, I can't type tonight. Don't know why you did that. Public void. So we're going to make a new instance of new CT222 sort EX. And we have to make sure that the order of one of them is the same as the flip of the other one. And this requires a person list and the two comparers. Right, so we're just going to do like new person, and then null A B BS. That's not bad. Okay, so let's start extracting these things. Okay, so people, and then we're expecting two comparers. Okay. Now, my comparer, I think, just needs to be a function that this way you write the code that does the sort of the list, get sorted. Okay, so that's the silly output that's in the console app. Now, in the names in this thing are so bad. The comparer comes from here, right? Get compare delegate. Right. So instead of just okay, so this is the function that is the compare delegate. Fine. Now I feel like I can just delete this and make this public to stop. God. Autocomplete. Eat your heart out. And make this public. That'll break. I can make this public static. And then this is now breaking because, yeah, this is just the compare function. Cannot assign method group to any implicitly typed local variables. I think, yeah, okay, fine, but what we're going to do is we're just going to do compare, and it's actually personList.compare because I made it static now. It's kind of funny, none of this logic actually requires a list at all. And yeah, we'll just do that, delete that, delete that. God, this is a really low quality exercise, is the thing that's obvious. Now this thing doesn't contain get compare delegate because it's just now test class is called person list and it's just compare, and then test class get form delegate should be, I'll come back to that one, and that's this. I wonder if I can remove all of that. Okay, this is excellent because I don't need the array list repr here anymore. I can just probably pass in test class because that is enumerable. Perfect. You see me slowly kind of peeling away the 20 years of detritus in this thing. Okay, so everything builds now, and we're going to jump back into the person list. Now, this is still just stupid, so I'm going to delete it. There's going to be none of this code left by the time we're done, which is probably the right answer. And you know, I suppose it does show how far C# has come over the years, that we can achieve the same kind of thing with much less code. Now this comparison of object 1 and object 2, so these two things have to be people. Yeah, you can see the cast in the original thing. Now I reckon if I just return name1 compare to name2, Actually, the tests will still pass now. And they do. All my unit tests still pass. I know you can't read that at the bottom, but they do. You can almost certainly replace the whole thing with link. But I guess the problem is, and this is really quite representative of modernizing old code bases like this, is you never want to jump from one thing to the next. You're better working through things like this step by step to work out if there's any kind of secret requirements that you weren't expecting, or like some sort of like this is honestly just garbage. Like I don't know. I mean, other than the fact that it was potentially designed to be deliberately wrong. Like this is just nasty stuff, right? But that's easy, and that's a stupid comment, and like these things can be inlined, and it's not really name 1 and name 2 anymore. It's person 1 and person 2. Now that's easier. Cool. So our comparison delegate just takes the 2 things and then shells back out. So the iComparable person class, which is much better now. And honestly, this is pretty much how you would write this stuff today. There's nothing that really has changed about comparing objects other than converting it to a record. And I think that maybe once we get this going, maybe we will switch it out for a C# record and see if it works better, or indeed the same. So, okay, there's this whole load of garbage here where I'm not doing anything, and that's where my results are meant to come in. So what we're going to do is we're going to spin this out into another file, which will probably zoom out, or spin on a loading spinner. There it is. Right. Okay. So CT222 sort EX. Now, I wonder if instead of having this comparison static function in here, we put it here, right? Static compare, and then this here is all the same, but this matches that delegate signature that the exercise requires. So we keep that in place, but instead of, and we're jumping across this thing here, so that's nice. Object 1, object 2. I mean, it'll blow up if some of this is null, but let's not worry about that for the moment. And then when we jump back into this list thing, we're just gonna rip this out. In fact, we can just return. I wonder if this will work. Can I just inline this guy? Wonder where it went. So that was Control RI, refactor inline. Amazing, and it just kind of threw it into both of these functions, which is kind of awesome. Now I can make this look really horrible by just doing that, and then we can convert it to a method group, and that's really the delegate. But I mean, never do that to some code. Switch out to a variable. I hate it. I hate it. Does it not support? No, it doesn't support type inference either. Now you could probably switch this out to a local function, I'm gonna guess. But let's just leave it there for the moment. We're gonna do that there, and we're gonna just throw it in here as well. We'll come back to that. Nasty. Nasty stuff. Now, yeah, it's a funny quirk of this implementation that you have to pass this exact delegate, but I guess that is the homework. V10 of, you talk about C#. I don't think I'm explicitly on a version of C#. I'm on latest major, so I guess it's the stuff that's, yeah, it must be V10. Maybe it's V9. It depends on this version of Rider. I could say it's the preview version, but this is a freshly installed environment, so apologies for the slightly vague answer. Okay, cool. So I got my comparer. That means this thing can. Oh, of course, I'm being stupid. Like I extracted that thing into here. I think instead of what I had in that form, I can just do person compare. That's what I was actually trying to do, and I somehow lost myself. Yes, I thought that func type detection is a C10, C#10 feature, not sure. Yes, possibly. I know they've added some more kind of type inferencey stuff around it. But there we go, we're passing the person comparer. Now this get format delegate is... we could have done anything here. Try it. Classic. Let's delete that. We could have done anything here. Right, what's going on? We're casting the thing. Now this obviously should just be an override of toString. I don't know what... I'm fairly certain that's always been in the language and the lecturer just didn't know about it. That's this name. It's just this, isn't it? What's going on here? Override string, toString. What am I in? Oh god, I'm not even in the right class, that's why. That's hilarious. So I think again, this just needs to be in the person class. I don't know why they put all this stuff in the wrong place. Really, really quite stupid. So we override to string, we paste in this thing, and that's that and that, and we can just flip it out for string interpolation. Look at that, wonderful. And then because we're in modern.NET, we can convert it to an expression body, because who cares about that string format? Awesome. And then what I think we can probably do is jump all the way up to this form, and instead of test class get format delegate, we can just do person to string, perhaps, and it's probably going to tell us that the delegate requires an object signature, like object rather than person. Yep, perfect. So what I would probably do is to string, and then it's what object, item. How unbelievable. Public, and we'll make this a static, and then this should just return item to string. And in most of the cases here, this will be absolutely fine. There we go, person to string. That passes through. And I'm going to do the same here. Let's see if this still builds. I'm fairly certain it does. My tests still work somehow. Amazing. Let's delete this garbage comment from the bottom. This was like 3 weeks of homework, 4 weeks of homework. Quite impressed. Okay, and I'm just going to run this to make sure I've not broken anything. I don't think I have. Yeah, text box 1, run using test.dll, run using mysort. Okay, so mysort is still broken because we've not really done anything here. But we'll write tests around that in a moment. Okay, so this is just all junk. God, what is all this? The constructor has passed 3 parameters. Yes, we know, we can see. The list of objects to sort, I love the air quotes around objects, a delegate method compare, which compares 2 of these objects, again with air quotes, and returns +1. And then the second, okay, so the sorting rules, 3, a delegate method format. Now the irony is, like, XML.doc always existed, right? You could have always done that and done it properly, but nope, not my degree. Yes, I know I need my local private variables here, so we're just going to get ReSharper to do that for me. Now I guess we just need to write a test, right? So if I do AB, let's just use obvious values and name it AAZZ. So there's the people. The comparer is person compare, and the format, thanks, enjoy your dinner, man. And then is person to string. Fine, so we've got our system under test, and now if I call sort, now, of course, because you can see the Java in it, can't you? Right, it's really funny. Like they've implemented a sort function that mutates the internal state of the object rather than returning. I will be streaming more later. I'm going to try and turn this into a bit of a series because I think it might be quite funny for me to go through all of my homework from like second year and third year, because it's novel looking back, and I think it would be especially good to do it blind and thresh around and fail. I probably shouldn't say that on the internet. Teaches people how to program for a living and can't do his own university homework. It's all good. Don't worry about it. So we sort this, and I should assert that, and we're just going to assert that, like, people or that. People 0 is let's just do first name. Like, this is a good enough example. First name is equal to A, and hopefully unit tests. Okay, that failed. Strings are, oh, of course, because lowercase. Okay, wonderful. So sort given already ordered list returns correct sort order. Now I don't think my code is actually doing anything here, so that's quite important. I wish I could make this test simpler, but like, fine. So we're just going to make sure that this and this are the output. Now, you would probably factor some of this out in later tests, but that's fine. Good enough for now. Now, given unordered list returns correct sort order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch those two things around. I'm going to call sort, and I expect that test to fail. There we go. We've got a red light down here at the bottom. Perfect. So if I now drop into this class, it's really funny doing this on stream because normally I have two panes of the code on the left and the tests on the right, but it doesn't really work with the display. Now this here, presumably, now because I've implemented iComparable on the object, I should just be able to say object list sort, and this is IEnumerable, so what I want to do here is I want to just to list it, and this here is going to be a list internally. And now this compare, what does that say? Cannot resolve method, compare objects, candidates are comparer in. Oh, of course, so I think, can I just do person compare? There we go. And because I've somehow delegated this wrong, oh, of course, because this signature is all wrong, but fine. I'm happy enough to do this. No one's going to be marking my homework. It's fine. This is where you write the code to sort the list. I think I just did. And does sort require you? It returns void, so that runs this comparison, which runs this comparison. That's a valid delegate. I could probably a comparer, which is like an iComparable. I wonder, or I just implement iComparable here, which allows me to do it with an object, which is really just var, yeah, thank you, object as person, then return this compare to other. Will probably work. And then I can do that. And once I've done that, back in my test over here, sorry, in my code, I should be able to use the delegate, I think. He says optimistically. No, that's still expects, because object list is a list of person. It expects the type generic, and this is basically ruining it. I could probably say like var comparison func is comparer as iComparable person, cannot convert exercise via a built-in conversion. Yeah. Is I comparable? No, it's just not going to have it. I could probably make this work if I try hard enough, but let's not. Let's just have my person compare here. That'll be fine. Now, the format, again, we'll come back to that. Now, I would have expected this to just work, but I'm going to see what it runs. Okay, strings differ. Okay, expected 0, but was Z. Yeah, that makes sense, people. Let's step through it and see what happens now. I'd have thought we'd be cool here, but I'm probably just not calling the code, frankly. Do I have to hit debug? Oh, there we go. So we're going to step inside. We've got the object list. That's in the right order. Z and A. We've got those comparisons. Then we're going to call sort, object list sort. We're going to step in and it's going to decompile the external sources because I pressed the wrong button. Let's not do that. One of the things that we do want to do is just make sure we've got a breakpoint here. So that's sort, and then of course I see what happened. It's not sorting this list. This is the input list. It's then taking a copy of that list, which is why it's not reordering, because this is literally just some input data. What we actually need to do, of course, right, okay, so instead of making that IEnumerable, I'm going to make it a list, so we are going to operate on the list itself. This here will be a list of people, person, and then new. Why are you angry with me? Am I missing something? Yeah, I was missing a reference. Cool, and we're going to have to fix it in the top one here. Cool, cool, cool. My unit test now passed, so it is now triggering that comparison. Wonderful. That's exactly what I wanted to do. Okay, so let's just check back in my homework and see what I was meant to be doing. Okay, so make my own complex type. Well, I added an age to it, like that's fine. You should complete sort EX so it performs the same as CT222 sort, however it should sort in the reverse order. Now, okay, so we can prove that, right? So this is doing that. Compare objects. Now I am confused why this sort function won't just take this compare, even though like it's exactly the same method signature as this. I would have thought sort would accept this. And it's saying cannot resolve method sort. Candidates are I compare a person in class list of person or sort in list of person. Okay, so I think I was trying to be clever and make this method signature match, which it does, unless no, it doesn't matter if it's a static, it'll still match the delegate. I'm just confused as to why that obvious method signature. Let's see what compare objects actually is, where it's defined. Yeah, like that is literally the exact same method signature, it should work. And it just cannot. Because I think sort takes an I comparer of a person, and I kind of need to wrap this thing in an I comparer of a person to make this crappy thing work. So I wonder if I can do that. Public class rubbish comparer error for silly system is an is I comparable. and that is that. And then, okay, so that is it. Is it an iComparer? It needs to be, in fact. There we go. I was close. It's not an iComparable. It's an iComparer that we need to implement. So I think if I take this method signature and put that on person, and it's going to be like, no, not that. There we go, but it is that same method signature, hilariously. Now I can dupe that up, hilariously compare static, like this is silly, but but that will be fine. Doing a silly, so this needs to be the static one, and that needs to be the instance one, and then we just return person obj1, obj2. So that kind of is all the horrible glue that's sticking between these two things. So expression body, fine. Now I think because that is now, so that kind of still works. So we're passing in this horrible thing here, but by the time it fits into that, is it still not having it? What do you actually need? Sort. Let's have a look. You need an iComparer of t, which calls this sort iComparer of t. I thought I'd already had that. I guess it's just because we're basically losing specificity when we cast it to this. I wonder if I just make this an iComparer of person. Right, so that there is valid. That will then work, and that will push that problem up to here. Because yes, that is the func signature here, which is kind of interesting. Now this here fits, and this here, silly. Yeah, so I can implement an iComparer of t, and then yeah, I see how that could work. This stuff is so kind of stupid, but what we're going to do is we're just going to ignore it, frankly. We'll give it the compare objects, and we'll give this a compare static, and we'll come back to it later maybe, but that's fine. Compare to, we'll call it that. Probably makes more sense. Okay, well, it doesn't when the word between it has a different form of to. Now this thing here, that works, and it's just saying that we need to do a sort, but it should be reversed. So I reckon in my tests here, where I've got a sort here, that does A to Z. Now that does the inverse. If I duplicate this test, I basically need to flip my assertions. So sort, let's just do sort EX. Well, it's not even that. It's CT222 sort EX produces inverse of CT222 sort. Okay, so there's the list. Sort EX and that one, and then we're gonna just dupe it for now. People 2. So this is sort sub1, sub2, and this is like new array list. people. Now the funny thing is, because I can't change the original code, I'm going to basically have to do that. People, and right, so it goes, it's an array list here. It doesn't get converted to a new list here. The conversion happens here and it sorts it in place. People2 is just a list of T. That does that. And I guess what I expect is that people1, is it called people1? It should be called people1. People1, 0, and of course array list, so it's awful. We just want the first items to be the inverse, so first item from original sort is people1, 0 as person. First item from new sort is people2, and we don't need that cast anymore because we've got generics. And the original sort, the first item should be A, and the new sort, and there should be first name. New sort should be the inverse, so first name should be Z. That's, I think, what the thing is, and this test will fail at the moment, or at least it should fail, or isn't run because form 0 is broken. It didn't build because, yeah, right, so we build it. There we go, I got my failing test because I've not implemented the new piece of functionality. And this isn't a great test, but like, yeah, I would probably take this stuff here and put it in like a setup so it's not repeated all the time. I could refactor it later, it's fine. We're kind of getting ourselves to green first. Now, I think all I really need to do here to make this test pass ridiculously is just be like object list reverse. Okay, and that's blown up because this now does the opposite, of course, of the original test. So these all fail. So this goes in reverse order, so these tests are actually wrong. Returns sorts in reverse. That's actually what this class does. Sorts in reverse, and again these assertions are wrong, so it should be Z and that should be A. And then this is correct. There we go, everything is green. So we managed to muddle our way through this very, very strange, like, I don't know why anyone would ever encapsulate code this way between, you know, all these comparers definitely need to be in the object. Now, the obvious suggestion that I think John said in the chat before is, wouldn't this just work as a new C# record? So I wonder, let's see if I can remember the syntax. So public record person2, yeah, go on, whatever you wanted there. IntelliCode, first name, last name, birth name. Now we'll just do this. In A, G equals 100. And it's probably gonna, oh yeah, I need to make sure records work. So if I just like comment out all this stuff here, it says the predefined type system runtime compiler services is external and it needs to be defined and imported. Now, is there an automatic fix for this? I swear I've had it fix this before. Otherwise, we're just going to Google it together. Is external init? Is external init? And this Stack Overflow that I've been to like 100 times. You just need to put this in the code base somewhere. So we're just going to add a new file. Class is external init, and we're just going to paste this in here. And that should at least let the thing build again there, so that's building. Now our existing code is now breaking, which is fine. It's what we expect to be happening here. Because all those places where we're passing in the sort delegates are now broken. But I think we can fix this example and get away with something here. Now, person list, you're now complaining because, did I not call it person? I'll call it person 2, right, fine. Right, so now all these comparison things are now gone. So I think by default, sort should work. And we're just going to put in like, we're going to take the code that we wrote here, this compare to this thing that was delegate, and we're going to see if we can do it as a local function. Right, so we do static compare to, and we're going to give it that. Right, so that delegate is satisfied by that local function, and then now can I? Does it not? It doesn't implement iComparable. Interesting. Huh. Well, there we go. Today I learned. And that's okay. It doesn't need to. Now person to string, and it's going to say that there isn't that extra delegate. Now that one will work because I can just do like static string format. Yeah, look, it's even suggesting it. And that delegate can just live in here, right? Bam, format person does work. But the comparison itself definitely doesn't. So maybe we can't just use a record type. Now, what that has shown, maybe we'll come back around on that. We go back into person and we uncomment this. But the nice bit is we can avoid using this compare to function here, and we can take that out, and we can just leave these obvious implementations in, and then we'll just let the silly delegate stuff be a form concern here. Now I feel like, God, I mean, the design of these components is really, really very poor, but it's nice that we could just do static, come on, there we go, compare objects. Almost right in IntelliCode. We're not going to compare age, we're going to compare objects. And we can inline, I don't know what I did there, that's person 2, we can do that, and then we can do that, and we can have a really weird, nasty cast thing. Can you do expression bodied members? You can! Look at that. That's terse to a point of confusion. I kind of love it. And similarly here, I could inline this, and I could do this as an expression body, and we can have these two very horrible glue functions that a lecturer 20 years ago decided were the method signatures we needed to use. And we can just throw them in here, and we can put that in here, and we kind of keep our new object model nice and clean. And we're going to delete this garbage as well. Perfect. So that is relatively easy. Person is now sad about something. It's probably not a comparer anymore. And we were so close to having this work. Now I wonder, would it work now we don't need comparison? Now I reckon it probably won't, because we're missing that compare to thing, and the record type clearly doesn't implement iComparable, which I thought it might, just based on the hash codes of the values. I know it does equals, but equals isn't enough. Well, today I learned. Worth a try. We'll put this guy back in. Remove the record type. We'll build everything, and then this thing here is now broken because we've done that. Now I wonder, is there a nice way that we can take these two horrible delegates? What we'll possibly do, if we're going to do like a very modern C-sharpy thing, we could have like public static class person extensions. We can have an extension. Let's use all the language features at once. We're going to have an extension method that uses tuple returns to return two funcs that we pass to our crappy old web forms thing. Right, so we've got this here, and I wonder. In fact, we don't even need to do that, do we? It would be fun, but I think this is probably enough. Public static class person comparers person delegate junk. No, we'll leave it at that, right? Public static format and public static compare, and that's the glue between them. Like if I had to do this in a system where I was modernizing a web forms code base, I would probably do something like that. I'd have person delegate compare person to string still kind of works, and we put that in there, and we put that in here, and that makes that okay. And then are we missing one? Yeah, we are. We're missing these here and here. Okay, so we got some tests over the thing. We know that we can sort in two different orders, and actually all this, well, what's going on here? Person 3 equals person 1. Let's just inline you, and we're going to inline you. I think I did something to make it easier to infer the types without noticing. So we're going to inline all that stuff, and we're going to remove all that, remove all that. Oops. We do this, we do this. We inline, we build, and hopefully all the tests will still pass. Let's take a look. Yeah, everything is still passing. Perfect. Less perfect, but tolerable. And now at least, in this weird class, the person list that we've not really touched, we still have these horrible users. This horrible thing's gone. This horrible thing's gone. This comment is just it is very simple and simply represents a person's name as two parts. The kind of things that academics write. Beautiful. Right, so this is a person list, which is just a list of person now. I mean, we just call it people, right? And ultimately we could really just delete this whole thing, but fine, doesn't really matter. We've got this horrible delegate class, should probably be called person delegates. And then we've got our nice new data structure, which is iComparable, that deals with its own equality. Yeah, I think that's pretty nice. And we don't need this external init because we're not using the record type. Sort and reverse. And then we don't even use these things because we don't even need to. And that's kind of the nice thing. We would delete those things, and then we go into a form. And this is where I just failed my degree because, of course, I've ignored the question and taken away the poorly designed bits. So that happens, and in fact here, person delegates compare, person delegates format, those two things. Now we've broken the build because obviously this stuff is all now hosed source CX. That goes away. Those things go away. And I guess this is like a very real refactoring, really. It's exactly the kind of thing. People. Very real kind of scenario. Okay, cool. That's a lot nicer. My tests all pass. Now I've not actually run the UI in ages, so let's see if we've broken anything. Now we shouldn't have. If I click the first thing, I still get all the names. Great. If I click the second thing, it still does nothing. And I think that's because in this new sort, yeah, there's this get sort string method will create a string which represents a list of all the objects it calls from delegate format on each. God, just like stop it. Stop it. Nobody cares. Your problem. So all we're going to do is we're going to say formatted is, I guess, object list select. Now, do I have the? No, it's just an item. I could probably just do like x as x to string, and then yeah, exactly that. Thank you, Copilot. And we can even do it in one line. We can do it to an expression body. We can drop it down here. We can tidy this all up. We make this sort.ex class entirely almost redundant. Because what really this should be is that, like, sorting should be a part of the implementation of the list itself if you want an extended list class. And I know I kind of dragged it out, I dragged all that implementation out of the list, but it's because it didn't really know what kind of custom collection it wanted to be. And like back in the old days, you used to build a lot of custom collections before generics existed. Now that all builds, and if I run it, and again you can't see this, but the first, let's just do like a notepad window. Oh god, what is right? So that's the first lot of text, and if I click the second one, it should be the reverse order. So let's have a look, and it is. Bam. Easy, easy, easy. So that's what, like half a semester's worth of university homework for one class in an hour and 22 minutes, done slowly with some unit tests which didn't really exist at the time. So when someone tries to hold their computer science degree over you in future, maybe look at it with a little bit of a more critical eye. And I think that's it for the evening. I think I'm gonna find some Friday night revelry. So thank you so much for hanging out. I hope this has been fun. And I'm going to try and get the recording of this up on YouTube for anyone that's watching it after the fact. Thank you very much, chat.